I recently came across an article called "The 10 Biggest Lies I Told Myself When My Son Died." It was written by Andy M. Davidson, a board-certified clinical psychologist. He wrote this in response to the death of his son from a motorcycle accident. Considering my previous writings on the topic of grief, I was interested to see how this compared to my studies and experience. In the end, I thought he had some really helpful ideas. As might be expected, he brought up Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who wrote the book On Death and Dying, where she introduced the idea of the 5 stages of grief. He said that she got close when she talked about the characteristics of grief being denial, anger, depression, and bargaining, but that he was yet to find complete acceptance. He further states, grief research does not support distinct stages, but suggests that grief is a combination of feelings, actions, and biological changes. I thought that was really interesting. I hadn't heard that before. He then goes into 10 different lies that he had either been told or presumed to be true for whatever reason. In grief recovery, we refer to 6 myths, which I recently wrote about. As you'll see, many are effectively the same as these lies, and I'll cover 3 of his 10. The first one is, you will stop grieving after a year has passed. Maybe you've heard this, have you? This is just another way of saying time heals all wounds, or just give it time. I previously wrote, time doesn't heal grief. On the contrary, the pain can actually worsen over time because there is an expectation that things will get better. We can think, it's been 2 years or 5 years or 20 years since my loved one died. Shouldn't I feel better? Shouldn't I be over it? Shouldn't I be able to move on? These are all things that I've heard a lot. Waiting doesn't repair a flat tire, and it won't heal a broken heart. Maybe some of the intensity will fade away, but the wounds of a broken heart don't just heal on their own. I've heard over and over again from people who still have a broken heart from the death of a loved one, even many years after the death. The next myth the next lie that he talks about was, stop crying, you'll feel worse, and you will look weak. So there are 2 myths that are related to this. One of them is, don't feel bad. And the other one is, I must be strong for others. I previously wrote, when we experience a major disappointment at work, or things get very intense at work, or we have a problem, or maybe our child doesn't get admitted to the college or school program of their choice, we can respond in maybe an intellectual manner. We can say, well, I'm the boss, or I'm the manager, or I'm the parent, and I can't allow myself to feel that pain because it's going to look weak and people will look down on me. Or maybe that school just doesn't understand you. Or for maybe a romantic situation, there's more fish in the sea. There's all these intellectual approaches, but those don't help the emotional side. We can think that it's not acceptable to acknowledge, express, or even feel any pain. We might even say, well, my loss isn't as bad as someone else's. It was just my dog that died. It wasn't my parent or my sibling, so I can't feel bad. But that's not fair. That's not correct. We're emotional beings, and we are going to feel pain of loss for things that are emotionally important to us. And if we don't allow ourselves to feel the powerful emotions of grief, we actually end up numbing our ability to feel all emotions. A client recently told me that after only 2 of the 7 sessions of the grief recovery method that I'm assisting him with right now, he has greatly expanded his capacity to feel joy. His understanding of grief and being able to reflect on the grief that he has experienced in his life has allowed him an expanded capacity to feel joy. That's such a cool message. And I'm so excited to be able to help him through this process. There's no question that it will continue to be transformational for him. For the Be Strong message, we are again denying our ability to feel or even acknowledge our experiences. For the younger generation, this message may stop them from ever reaching out for help, which the accumulation of loss and pain in a child or in a youth can really lead to cumulatively negative outcomes for them. We must remember that grief is cumulative and cumulatively harmful. We need to help each other relieve that grief. Parenthetically, I offer a course called Helping Children with Loss that does just that. It helps parents, teachers, coaches, anyone that works with children or has children in their lives to help them effectively cope with the profound losses in their lives so that cumulative grief can actually be lessened. It's a wonderful course, and I encourage you to check it out and reach out for more information. The last of the lies that I'll cover is you need to get right back up on that horse. There are two myths that are closely related to this one. Replace the loss, and if I keep busy, the pain will go away. For Dr. Davidson, this was supposed to look like getting back into a busy schedule or just being productive in some way. He said, returning to my previous schedule was disastrous for me. I changed and I didn't want to go back to my old world. What a powerful and emotionally honest expression from him. Of course, there was no way that he was going to be able to replace the loss of his son. But when a pet dies or a romantic relationship ends, that is often what happens. We go out and we adopt a new pet, and we enter into a new romantic relationship. However, if we want either of those new relationships to thrive, we are much better off if we find emotional completion from the grief surrounding that loss first. Then we don't enter into that new relationship with that emotional baggage. We can walk in with a clean slate. So thank you, Dr. Davidson, for your work and contribution. Recovery from grief is possible. I always want to remind people of this message. That's why I updated the name of my newsletter to Finding Recovery from Grief. I was very recently asked if recovery from grief is even possible, or if we just live forever with that grief. Yes, recovery is possible, and it is wonderful, and it is transformational. The Grief Recovery Handbook, here it is, will walk you through how to do it. And if you want to work with a certified specialist to help you complete all those steps, that's what I do. That's what I offer. And I'll provide a link to my upcoming schedule. And I'm always happy to work with people one-on-one. So please don't hesitate to reach out.